Welcome back, everyone, for today's video. Today I'm going to be recapping my Tuesday rated game held at Chess Zone between myself and Brad Lathrop. Now, I've played Brad Lathrop a couple times in the past, and I've had good results against him. I won, and I beat him maybe once or twice in Blitz. But he has gained a lot of ratings since I have last played him. He was last like 1750 or something, and now he has gained almost around 200 points since our last classical encounter. So let's see if he has drastically improved and how he will fare against me. So without further ado, let's jump straight into the action. And as a reminder, this is time control is 60 minutes with a 5-second increment after every move. All right. So I start the game with e4, and Brad replies with e5. Knight f3, knight c6, and I play my classic Scotch game. I'm going to do the gambit in the next move. So after d4, Brad takes, and I go bishop c4, my classic Scotch gambit that I always do. Brad played the move knight f6, and I played the move e5. Now, everyone plays the move d5 as black, which is what you're supposed to do. You're counterattacking the bishop on c4, and you're just gaining central space. But there are other moves in the position. You could play knight g4. It's playable. But Brad chose to move knight e4, which I assume is a move, but it's not as common. I haven't seen it as much, but it's still a book move. It just looks a little weird because you're moving the knight already to e4, where it can become a target with a move like bishop to d5. But after bishop to e5, the knight will just move to c5, and you will get your pawn back right away, and the position is equal. So after knight e4, I think for a second, and I play the move castles, which is book move. Brad played the move bishop to e7, and I played the move rook e1, attacking the knight on e4. And here, Brad played the move d5 now, and en passant isn't forced. I did not en passant here because I didn't want the knight to come back, attack my bishop, and after I moved my bishop, then maybe black could hold on to the pawn somehow by moving the knight again, but it's still fine. So after d5, I play the move bishop b5, which apparently is an inaccuracy. I'm just getting the pawn back. I don't really know what else is wrong with this move. Pinning the knight to the king and threatening to take it on the pawn on d4. Here, Brad castled, and I took the knight. Pawn takes, and one way is correct to take on d4. Not queen takes d4, because that would blunder bishop c5, and all of a sudden your queen is hit, and there is a double attack on f2, and you're going to lose material. So instead I take with the knight to avoid that. And here Brad played the move bishop to d7 to defend his pawn on c6. And I was thinking about what to do here. Maybe go f3, c3, develop my bishop to f4. There's a lot of options for white here. I ended up going knight to d2, which is best to try to trade off the active knight in e4. And Brad took, and I took with the bishop because queen takes was a little awkward. So after bishop to d2, Brad blitzed out the move rook to b8. And at this point, Brad already has a 5 to 6 minute time advantage. He's playing very confidently, very quickly, very sure of himself. I'm spending a little bit more time per move than he is, but we still have a bunch of time left, so it's not a huge issue yet. So after the move rook b8, I decide on how to deal with the attack on my pawn. There are lines here. Let me just play a random move here to illustrate the point. There are lines here where black can get trapped here if after a move like knight b3, the rook is not getting out, and white is going to win an exchange here. Now black's technically is fine here after the move bishop to f5, and after the move bishop c1, you can't take here because of a fork on d4. But after move bishop c2 and you move your queen to d2, Black has to give up the rook here. With the rook takes, a2 takes, and then bishop b3. This is what the engine recommends. But obviously, we didn't see that far, and I didn't think Brad was going to go into that. But anyway, I actually ended up defending my pawn with rook b1, and Brad played the move c5 really quickly, still having 57 minutes, and me having 51 minutes. Like a few moves ago, it was the same time situation. So after c5, I retreat to f3, and Brad played the move bishop g4, I play h3, and he moved to h5. And here, my position, I wasn't really super fond of my position here. The reason being is because Black has a lot of center space with the pawns on c5 and d5. My knight is pinned, and my rook on b1 is kind of awkwardly placed, having to babysit the pawn on b2. And also Black has the bishop pair and may start to play moves like f6 to try to open the f-file and add pressure to the knight on f3. So I played the move queen to e2, and Brad played the move d4, which makes sense because he's trying to, at some point, play d3, maybe get the bishop to g6, and try to open lines on the center, where his pieces will get active. I played the move bishop f4 here. I'm not really trying to accomplish anything. I'm just passing the ball in Black's court here. So Brad quickly played the move queen d5, and I noticed that this was a very annoying move. The reason being is because my knight on f3 is hit twice, along with my pawn on a2. Now, of course, I can save my pawn on a2 with a move like b3, but then I was worried that Black could trade on f3, and then I would be left with a shattered kingside pawn structure, which I didn't want to go into. So instead, after around several minutes of thought here, one of my longest thinks in the game, I ended up playing the move c4. Not the greatest move, but only if Black slides the queen away on the diagonal. If they en passant, for instance, then White is fine here because the pressure has been alleviated, and White has now an open d-file for the rook and can play g4 at some point and have space to play with. So Black needed that pawn on d4 as sort of restricting White's mobility. Also, that pawn could be a potential weakness in the future if Black maybe would play bishop f7 and try to pile up on that pawn. I mean b3, but it also just allowed Black to have a passed d-pawn, so I guess that was the main reason why it was not the best move. Instead, Brad played bishop takes f3, and I decided what to respond here with. If I take his queen, then I saw if he takes my queen, I take back, and he would play a move like rook d8. My pawn on d5 cannot be defended, and Engine evaluates this as a draw, but I didn't want to lose a pawn for no reason. So I accept my fate and damage my pawn structure voluntarily. Brad played queen e6, attacking my pawn on h3, and I played king h2, defending it and maybe preparing to double rooks on the g-file. But Brad doesn't let me do that. He plays the move queen f5, and I have to save my bishop with bishop to g3. And here, Brad played the move rook b6. Very good move. He is threatening to go rook h6 and try to attack my king. So I don't hesitate, and I offer a trade of queens on e4. Knowing that I'll end up with double pawns in the endgame, but it's better than playing a defensive setup in a possibly checkmating attack on the h-file. So Brad took, and I take back with a pawn. That way I can push my f-pawn up, and I'll have sort of this clump of pawns on the e and f files. So after f takes e4, Brad played the move rook f to b8, and I play b3, defending my pawn on b2 by pushing it up a square. Here, Brad played a5. I was expecting that. He's trying to go a4 and win my pawn on b3 because my pawn is pinned. If that pawn goes to a4, my pawn on b3 is pinned, basically. So, rook e to d1 is what I decided to do here. The reason being is that after Brad played the move a4, I would defend my pawn with rook to d3. And Brad was thinking here about what to do, to either keep the pressure on the b3 pawn or to just trade everything off. He ended up trading everything off here. And we get into this same colored bishop endgame. And if anything, black's better because they have a protected pass pawn on d4 and they don't have as many weaknesses. But nonetheless, it's still a draw with perfect play. Here, Brad played the move c6. I guess he was scared about me playing e6 at some point and his pawn being attacked, so he played c6. I played the move f4, and I got a little spooked by this because I thought I blundered the game, and I thought he would go d3. Only move to stop the pawn is bishop e1. And then I saw that he had this move bishop h4, and I thought I was toast here. But turns out I can just move my bishop somewhere along the diagonal. Okay, not to c3 apparently. To d2, for instance. And yeah, the bishop h4 move is flashy, but it doesn't do anything. The position is still remaining equal. So I got a little bit spooked by that, but it was a ghost threat. Sometimes in chess you see moves that don't actually threaten anything, like in my case, and you get scared of them. Happens to all of us. So f4, Brad played the move bishop to d8 here. And after bishop e1, I'm trying to prevent him to going to a5. And bishop to c7, king g3, bishop g5 here. And I played bishop d2, defending my pawn on f4. And after he took, I was debating on which way to take back. If I take with the king, it's still technically fine, but after f6 for black is getting a pawn and having winning prospects. Especially after I move my king somewhere, like here. Black's going to have, oh, not there. King e6 is winning for white, somehow. I guess because the king goes in and attacks all the pawns on the queen side. So I guess bishop takes is the correct move here. Point is that black's up a pawn and having winning chances, but still you can mess this up. So I just decided to take with the bishop instead. And after bishop takes f4, I was calculating f6, which did happen in the game, so I'm going to show it now. I thought that f6 was fine, like it was basically a draw offer. Because after I was calculating bishop takes bishop, king takes, and in my head I evaluated that, okay, black has a d pawn that my king has to guard, and black has to deal with my f and e pawns. So I thought, but neither king can make progress and it's a draw. But the reason that it's winning for white is because after king f7, e5, white can always play the move b4 to try to undermine the pawn on d4, and my king would be in the square. So after black would take on b4, I would grab the d4 pawn and still be in time to catch the b pawn. So that is why it's winning for white. But as you probably saw, this throws the game, and I realized it because black can play the move d3 in this position. Quote-unquote brilliant move here. And the reason this is winning for black is because I have no way to stop the pawn from promoting. My bishop is pinned to my own king. My bishop, which is supposed to be controlling the pawn's mobility, it can't do that because the bishop on c7 is pinning my bishop to the king. So if I grab the bishop, he just pushes. And if I slide my king out of the way to unpin my bishop, then he simply trades and then pushes. So in either case, I would be lost. So for that reason, I didn't take the pawn. Instead, I play king f3, and he actually told me this after the game that he should have taken with the bishop here to try to have winning chances. But he took with the pawn. It's probably drawn either way, but this is more of a draw, if that makes sense. So I play the move bishop to d2. And let's see, king f7, time update. We each have about 20 minutes. So Brad was up a significant amount of time in the beginning and early middle game. But now he has equalized the time gap between us. So he's only up a couple of minutes now. So after king f7, king g4, king g6, bishop e1, and h5 check, I decide to go to g3 and bishop d8. I mean, both sides aren't really playing for anything. This is pretty much a draw. And I play the move h4, and for the first time in this game, I might give you a hint later, I actually offer a draw twice in this game. This is the first time I offer a draw, and Brad declines the offer because he's up a pawn, and he might try to use his passed d pawn to his advantage. And I'm like, fine, it's probably a draw, but I understand why you would want to play this position onward. So after the move bishop e7, I'm just sort of loitering with my bishop, I'm sort of having a fortress. Notice how my pawns on e4 and h4 are barring the king from ever entering the king side. So the king has no entry point to the right side of the board. And if you look at the left, my pawn on c4 is controlling b5. So the king can't enter via that way. The only way the king can invade my position is via the a5 b4 square. Well, that's what my bishop is doing. Anytime the king is going to venture over there and try to go king a5, king b4, king takes b3, king takes c4, and win the game, my bishop is going to be guarding the dark squares, and the king will never be able to enter that side of the board. And that is why it's a draw, because black's king can not really enter the action, and neither can mine. And in fact, I have to deal with my h-pawn. I have to constantly guard it. So that's why it's a draw. Neither side can really achieve their goal here. So after bishop to d2, Brad played the move king f7. I'm shuffling back and forth. King h3, king g6, king g3, bishop f8. Not really much explanation here. We're just sort of shuffling back and forth, seeing what the other player is going to do. I play the move bishop g5 here. 16 minutes left, and here black played move king f7, bishop d2, king e6, king h3, king d7, king g3, king c8, king f3, king b7, bishop g5, bishop d6, bishop d2, king a6. Remember, the king trying to go to the other side? My bishop is there just in time to prevent king a5 from happening. In fact, just for curiosity, if I move the bishop away, let's say, ooh, even here, even if you let the king go, yeah, you just check him right back. Okay. In fact, it's the only move. It's so important to control that b4, a5 diagonal. Anyway, going back. So yeah, king a6, I play the move king e2, king b7, king d3, king c8. I mean, we're just basically going back to where we were a few moves ago. The king has shuffled to the other side of the board now. I play bishop e1 to defend my pawn. Yeah, king e6. Oh yeah, I should mention, on move 52, he offered me a draw. I offered him a draw, and he again declined. And I was getting pretty annoyed because I'm like, bro, we're not playing for anything. You're not trying to play for anything. I'm not trying to play for anything. It's basically a draw. Let's just go home, have dinner if you hadn't had it already, and call it a day. But he wanted to grind my gears in the endgame, which he did. And no spoiler alert, I achieved a really rare result. So be sure to stick around to the end of the video. So king e6, again, shuffling back and forth, no really obvious goal. Bishop f8, king e2, bishop h6, king d3, bishop f4, king d2, And yeah, I'm just going to summarize it really quickly here. We're just meandering, not really doing anything. Okay, obviously, yeah, you actually could take this bishop here. You probably wouldn't want to risk it because of black's past d-pawn, but the point is that after a move like king d2, king c5, and king c2, yeah, again, going back to that concept of black not entering the position, it's a fortress because black can never enter my side of the board, so technically I could have traded bishops, but I kept it safe. I just moved my bishop back, and black can't really do anything. I can't do anything. I attack their pawn, but black has to come back and defend it. King e2, king d7, king d3, king e6, king e2, king bishop e2, king d2, king f6, king c2, king bishop c3, king d3, bishop a5, king e2, king bishop d8, king d3, king e6, king e2, king bishop f6, king d3, bishop g7. And I'm just going to mention something real quick. By this point, I was getting pretty exhausted from playing this endgame. Like, we're obviously not playing for anything. He's not going to... if I offer him a draw a third time, he's obviously going to decline. And at that point, it would be considered disrespectful to offer a draw too many times because you already know your opponent's going to say no. So I just go down the checklist. The ways to draw on chess are perpetual check, threefold repetition. Obviously, that's maybe threefold repetition, but I don't have a photographic memory, so I couldn't really prove that the position had occurred 3 times just by notation. There's no perpetual check. There's no stalemate. There's no insufficient material. So what's the only thing left on the checklist? It's the 50 move rule. And that is a very rare thing to happen in over-the-board chess, even online chess. For those of you that don't know, the 50 move rule states that if no pawn had advanced or any capture had been made in 50 consecutive moves for both sides, then it's a draw. And I kept note of that because that was the only way I was going to secure the draw. So while Brad was thinking here, when we had about 10 minutes for both of us, I flipped to my notation sheet and I saw that my last pawn move, or the last pawn move in general, was on move 40. So my goal was to make it 90 moves in and then call the tournament director to officially claim the 50 move rule. And that has never happened to me at all. I don't even remember if it happened to me online, but certainly not over the board. And this might be the first and last time that the 50 move rule is going to happen because it's such a rarity. Like, if, let's say, Ferrugia and Magnus had this position against each other, they would have agreed to a draw like 15 moves ago. They wouldn't be playing this out. But we're not 2,700 plus grandmasters. We're an 1804 and a 1950. So we try to cause the other person to blunder. Anyway, going back to the game, just shuffling back and forth. You guys get the gist by now. Sorry, let me go back. Yeah, so just shuffling back and forth. Obviously, don't take the bishop. If you want to lose the game, you can take the bishop, but obviously don't. So just shuffle the bishop back. Black can't do anything to hurt you. We keep moving. Brad isn't aware that I'm trying to go for 90 moves. He's just trying to make me make a mistake. I, on the other hand, am well aware that I'm only 2 moves away from reaching 90 moves. So after king d6, king e2, bishop e3, and king d3, and king e6, I pause the clock, and I call over the tournament director. And he reviews my notation sheet for a few seconds, and to his surprise, he noticed that indeed there were no pawn moves since move 40 and no captures, so the game was officially declared a draw. Now, Brad looked a little surprised by this because, I mean, I would be too if I was playing in his shoes, because he has never faced the 50 move rule, nor was he keeping track of it. And I'm the one that was having to keep track of it because I'm the one that's trying to fight for the draw. I'm the one defending. I'm the one trying to create a fortress. I'm the one down a pawn. I'm the one down 10 minutes on time. The final position, had like 3 minutes, and he had like 13 minutes. So, anyway, by 50 move rule, we get a draw against a pirated player by around 150 points. So that was a great result. In fact, if we look at the game accuracy here, we both played at around 94 accuracy. Very high level game. In fact, look at that bar. That bar was basically on the line the whole game. Black was a little bit better, but it's ever so slightly. So it was a great result, very accurate play from both of us. And yeah, I'm going to wrap up this recap by saying it's very late. I finished studying for my stat test, and I just wanted to record this recap before I go to bed. And yeah, I hope you guys got something out of this video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button below. And until next time, bye.